Today, we're going to be doing a bit of a dive into what I believe to be one of the most nonsensical policies that I've ever heard of, and it's one we've had the privilege of witnessing firsthand during our recent visit to Kings Island. But in order to explain in all proper context, I think we have to do a little reenactment.
You're good to go, and you're good to go. How old is she? She's 2. She'll be turning 3 next month. Hi, how old are you? 2. Can you show me with your hands? Are you 2 or are you 3? 3! Sorry, she says she's 3, so that means she's gonna need to buy a ticket. But she's not 3, she's 2. Sorry, but our policy is that if the child says that they are 3, then that means that they have to buy a ticket. So you go off the age that a child tells you and not the age that their parent tells you. Yes, but the kid's not 3. I mean, I can prove it. I have photos on my phone that are like from the date that they were at the hospital. We know the day that she was born. Yes, it's our policy that when the child says that they are 3, that means that they have to buy a ticket. But she isn't 3. She doesn't turn 3 for 2 more weeks. Like, do you need proof? It doesn't matter if the child says that they're 3. Can I speak to your supervisor?
Eventually, we did make it into the park, but for hopefully many of you that may also be parents, you immediately noticed the problem with what just happened. For those of you who maybe missed it, the policy we're talking about today is the policy referenced in the skit. We visited Kings Island a couple weeks before my daughter turned 3 years old, and when looking at my child and noticing she's pretty big for a 2-year-old, the policy is to ask the child how old they are, and then utilize that as the answer for whether or not a ticket is to be required. There are 2 big problems with what we went through. The first we'll cover is the way that this employee asked our child, which is the fact that they coached our kid into giving the answer that they thought would be correct. When asked initially and our daughter answered correctly that she was 2, they rephrased the question to ask if she was 2 or 3. Anyone who's ever worked with a toddler before knows that what you've effectively done at that point is provide a child with a 50-50 chance of either of the 2 answers you provided to them. And really, the answer is more like a 30-70% chance because a kid's significantly more likely to say whatever the second option was just because it was the most recent thing they heard. This makes this test extremely unreliable. If you ask her if she's 1 or 5, she'll most likely tell you she's 5, and she's neither. This coaching only serves to set kids up for failure of the little test that they're not even sure they're participating in. The second part of this test is that you can't ask a 2-year-old how old they are, because they don't know how old they are. Children at the age of 2 have a very tenuous grasp on time and also a very limited knowledge about themselves. According to choc.org, a child isn't expected to understand their own age and name until they're 3. Parents.com says that children won't have an understanding of the concept of time until they're 4. BetterHealth.gov also agrees with this. And sites like these often stress that children grow at different rates. And what this means is that there is no guaranteed that a child at any age between 2 and 4 may or may not actually have an understanding of their own age. And that makes the child an unreliable narrator. I mean, imagine this. A crime occurs, and then somebody who's legally blind, you're asking them to describe the perpetrator's outfit. There's a chance that they'll describe them correctly, but you can't rely on that as evidence. And yet, that's essentially exactly what this policy requires of these employees. You're coaching a child who doesn't know how old they are into giving an answer to a question they don't understand the answer to yet. The policy just doesn't make any sense. So why does it exist? I think the answer to that question has multiple layers. On the surface, the reason's obvious. Kids under 2 don't need a ticket or a pass, and kids 3 and over do need one. So this incentivizes parents to lie about their child's age and say that they're 2 when they aren't, so they can continue to gain free entry to the park. Kings Island wants to avoid parents trying to sneak their children in for free, so this policy is intended to solve that. But as we've already discussed, this is a horrible way to solve this problem because it's completely unreliable to do for any kid under the age of 5. So what can we do? Well, let's look at what my home park, Cedar Point, does for this. And the answer is, kids under 5 still get in for free. Cedar Point uses a system where kids under 3 don't need a pass or a ticket. When children turn 3, the park requires them to get a pre-K pass, which is a totally free pass that you get by simply just bringing your child into guest services along with evidence of their age. The purpose is to build a buffer between the ages of 3 and 5, where parents aren't incentivized to lie, but it also removes the plausible deniability of someone saying their kid doesn't need a pass. Because someone could lie when their kid's plausibly between 2 and 3, in which case they gain nothing because there's still no cost associated with either asking for a pass or not asking for one, so the park doesn't really need to care. But then at some point, it's no longer plausible to say that your 4.5-year-old is 2 years old. So they're going to require you to get a pass, in which case it still wouldn't cost the parents anything. And by the time your kid turns 5, you would already be required to provide evidence of their age anyway in order to get their pre-K pass. So if you can't prove as a parent that the kid's under 5, then you're going to have to pay. This method's so much better than the policy that Kings Island has that it simply makes Kings Island's solution look nonsensical by comparison. So why doesn't Kings Island do this? A little break. This is actually the second time recording this video, and since actually writing the initial script, there's been a development. The entire situation ignited my wife's inner Karen, and so she called us customer service to talk about this. And my wife told her everything that happened to us, and the customer service rep proceeded to tell us that she completely agrees with our frustration. She informed us that actually our scenario caused such a stir within the company that a memo was sent out to the entire company the same day of our visit, which amended the policy, stating that employees are allowed to ask questions about a child's age, but they can't refuse proof provided the parents that state their age. This means when my wife insisted on providing proof of my daughter's age, they would have to accept that proof. While this is a lot better than just blindly trusting the word of a child, I still think they should absolutely be considering the use of a pre-K pass that the other parks have been using. It just makes the most sense. Just as a final note, as some food for thought. The pre-K pass is used by most of Cedar Fair's parks. In fact, the only 2 that don't use it are Kings Island and Knott's Berry Farm. Interesting. And that does it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys have some feedback or input to add to the conversation around this policy and the changes to this policy and how other parks are doing this, I would love to hear productive, fruitful conversation about this down below. And I hope that you realize that you are beautifully and wonderfully made and you are loved. And that's the whole point. See you next time.